is item 8, proposed council housing policy. Paul Cotton and Glenn, would you like to?
Yes, very much.
Would you like to present this?
Sure. Do that now?
Yeah.
Thank you. This policy really is the culmination of the previous term's work and arguably some work prior to that, 2 terms back, when some of us initiated homegrown housing summits. So that has partly fed into this as well. We often find it easy for the words Christchurch is a great place to live, work and play to roll off our tongues. But what does that actually mean? How can we give effect to Christchurch being a great place to live? What is it that can sit beneath that statement to actually deliver that? This policy, firstly, is underpinned by a human rights quality over access to adequate housing for all. It describes what the council can do across the housing spectrum, not necessarily to build all the houses. Our stock and trade has been social housing, but actually initiatives over homelessness right through to affordable housing, where sometimes the best thing we can do is actually get out of the way to ensure that people can access affordability. So in terms of what can give effect to Christchurch being a great place to live, what can we do by being providing an affordable environment, by supporting initiatives for trusts to develop housing over affordability, by having a thriving central city. We have a target for 20,000 people. Central City, it's an audacious target, by ensuring that anyone who is homeless has options so that no one is sleeping on our streets. You'll see the stakeholder information provided there. I'll pick out just 2 quickly. The DHB notes housing as a key determinant to the community's health. The Christchurch Youth Council surveyed its own members and found actually housing affordability came out as their number 1 priority, and they admit that took them by surprise. The policy's in 2 parts. There's the actual policy itself, which can be reviewed every 6 years. Then there's the list of action priorities, and that can be changed any time. For my mind, that list of priorities could serve as actually a program of work for the committee into which this policy will land this term, and we get to decide on that. So I encourage you to support this, to ask the questions, to tease them out. Yanni has an amendment to come into the action part, so we've talked about that with Paul, and I've set the addition through there to recognise some of one of the stakeholders' concerns. So it's a big piece of work, but I think it's good for council to be seen to take the lead. Thank you.
Very good. Now, did you have a suggested amendment to?
Yes, I've sent it through to.
Oh right, sorry.
Yep. We've talked about it, and it seems it's more going to land in the action part of the policy rather than in the guts of the policy itself. Okay. Paul and I and Yanni have talked this through, but that can change any time.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think, well, the range, I did think that it could fit under range of responses, but I was picking up on the point that it does need a specific attention. So if it goes into a deliverable under the goal, then that works for me.
Great. Yep. Okay.
Just one point that Vicky's just made is that actually constructively work with young people in organisations, because there's organisations other than youth organisations that are looking at solutions to youth housing issues and opportunities. So I just,
put relevant.
That would be quite
relevant organisations. Yeah, that's fine.
Right. And I just briefly wanted to say the Youth Council did a lot of work around the housing policy. I just think this reflects an opportunity to keep that dialogue and conversation going, to look at what is a really important issue, which is youth housing. And so would really encourage people to consider adding this to the policy.
Okay, so you're moving it, and who wants to second it?
Happy to second it.
Happy to second it, Yanni. All right. So, is there any further discussion? Aaron?
Just questions to.
Questions.
Oh, sorry, not
Yeah, questions, no, that's fine.
Just around your affordability model, and that you went for, and I just question why you use that as the model, that households earning up to 120% of median household income. Why is it not just the median or average income for affordability? Because people with lots of money, things become quite affordable. We need to worry about the people with not as much money.
Yes. In response to that, I think it better reflects the household incomes that people who in Christchurch and just the challenges that they have in order to be able to save a deposit and also to service a mortgage. So if you're thinking about 120% median household income in Christchurch, you're talking an household income of around $80,000 to $85,000. So I think it's a better reflection of just where the struggles of real issues are.
So if that's the case, is that not saying that affordable, because that's your affordable mark, this isn't your $1 million homes in Northwood, this is, you're saying that only 20% of the population can afford a home, if that's our working model? Maybe 25.
I'm suggesting that that definition includes all those households up to that level of in terms of identifying where the affordability issue really lies. So those households getting over it, more able to secure a deposit, take advantage of key save subsidies and
Right, because I noted that your price, which the affordable one is $383,000, yet the average income in Christchurch is $1,265 a week, which ANZ will give you $160,000. You need a lot of deposit. You need $223,000.
That's right, and it's also heavily based at the moment. It's why the phrase borderline affordable is in there. So it just references the fact that we do indeed have a low interest rate environment at the moment. So things like that change. We have to change that picture completely. So in other words, to put it in shorthand, we're suggesting is this as good as it gets, and we're suggesting to you that's a risk and that there's a role to play in this space.
Is that?
Well, it doesn't help 65% of our population.
Well, except that it's based on 30% of their income. So if they're on a lower income, it picks them up.
It's a standard measure of affordability.
Well, it's fine if you're renting, but the reality is if you're on the average income in Christchurch, you can't buy a house.
Well, the government put in place some lending rules after this policy was first drafted. They've used a big tool to take in, well, not only speculators, but the average Joe Bloggs who wants to get a house. So they've made life pretty hard. So, you know, we're doing our bit, but I think they have a few questions to answer as well.
Yeah, that's not my point. I'm not having a go about us not doing our bit, because this is a good start. This is getting the train going. The problem is that when the average person who might be working as a panel beater or even a policeman, they'd look at this and go, your numbers don't relate to me as affordable, is my concern.
Okay. And that's because they can't save for a deposit. It is more that because it's more that which is central government.
These numbers are talking about a city that most people don't live in, is what I'm saying.
But I think, we're answering the question.
Perspective it does.
Oh yeah, the rental's fine.
Yeah, because it's 30% of your income. So whatever your income is, that dollar amount's going to change. Yeah. So you're really talking about the ability to buy a house.
Yeah, that Kiwi
and what's affordable.
If I work 2 jobs, I can afford a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And saving for that deposit's going to be, so it's the deposit gap that's the kicker, isn't it?
Well, and that in the entire shape of the market doesn't work.
Oh, well, let's hope that someone thinks of a solution for the deposit gap. Well, people can, use their KiwiSaver for. Yeah. There's all sorts. Yeah. But anyway, all right. Vicky. Oh, did anyone else have questions? Phil? Oh, David.
Just briefly, Paul, like there's been a huge amount of work gone into this, I'm aware, and some of the submitters said, look, the concept of urban design, that should be more incorporated. Have we been able to do that, do you think?
Yes, we've attempted to acknowledge some of those submissions, certainly fill around quality and design. So within attachment 2 there, which shows you what our proposed policy will actually look like, we've shaded the amendments or the additions or clarifications or tweaks to emphasise certain points. So I think you'll find that your points there have been highlighted there, if you like, a couple of times throughout the policy.
New technology, thank you.
Very good. David?
Thank you. It's a very well written policy. I just wonder, some of the conversations we've had in recent days regarding being a subject or a citizen, whether there is any thought given to including in this policy what we as a city may expect in return for these, for the provision of affordable housing. What outcomes the city would expect from the provision of affordable housing.
Happy people.
Well, more, if we are engaging in the provision of affordable housing, what in return are those that are availing themselves of that provision contributing to the city? Should we be looking at that longer term in our policy? Or?
You could start to reclaim.
I'm afraid I'm a little bit
well,
lost
no,
as
just
to what the question is.
Raf's speech that he gave to us the other morning about, and I like the idea of sort of we are subjects of the city now, we need to be citizens of the city.
Will you potentially expand your ratepayer base?
Are we, and I always look at social initiatives as being a hand up, not a hand out.
Absolutely.
So are we reflecting that sort of image in our policy?
At the moment, we're having questions to
Well,
Paul.
I'm asking the question.
No, but that's not a question you ask staff. It's a question to debate with your colleagues. So
I'll save it for debate then.
So we'll leave it to the debate. So are there any other questions for Paul? Right, okay. Now, Vicky, you wanted to contribute to the debate.
Just in relation to this, the outcome of affordable, available housing in a community is a community that works. The reverse of that is the current situation you get, for example, in Auckland, where the situation has flipped and you cannot afford to be a teacher or a policeman or anything else in Auckland at the moment. And the situation is dire. You need a $200,000 deposit and you need $800,000 in borrowing to buy a house. That is not the situation we want to be in. I like the spectrum that has been developed here, and I think we have a range of things that we have to do. One, in relation to the homelessness, we are in a situation where we can actually make sure that there are no homeless people in Christchurch, and that's a fantastic situation to be in, and one that we have to act on to make sure we achieve. That's our responsibility. These are our, I don't care what they are, they're citizens, the people's kids, they're people's parents, they're part of our community. They should not be living on the streets at all. We have tried and failed with the independent hearings panel to try and make sure that in the rebuild of so many homes in Christchurch that they were at least of 6-star quality. And the government statement of expectations meant that the independent hearings panel did not adopt that, which is almost criminal, I think, but it hasn't happened. The other one, and I like Yanni's amendment, is that we are acutely aware from our last public hearings on housing when we were about to set up, when we've just gone through the process of setting up the trust as a result, is that the issue of youth homelessness is severe. And the issue of young people living in homes where they are not okay is still very real in this city. So we need to make sure that we include the youth issue. In relation to the affordability, I think it's actually very, very important that people can afford to buy their own homes. I don't agree with Aaron's figures at all. You can buy with a 20% deposit, so you need to save 74k on the average on a home, a starter house in Christchurch, and that's actually doable. You can get, if you're a couple, you can get 20k on the government's Home Start. You can get other assistance on that Home Start, and what we're currently seeking to achieve is a Home Start initiative for Christchurch, using some of the government contribution for the housing accord. So we're working with government on attempting to get that into Christchurch. That would mean that people then borrow, on your figures, about 300k, which if you look at a 4%, and it's currently slightly over that, is about $1,000 a month that they're paying in interest. Not capital repayment, but interest, which is actually doable. And so we are still in the situation where we can have a city where we have really good housing. And if you look at the most basic of our infrastructure, it is actually beyond Orion and roads and footpaths. It's actually housing. It is what determines people's life outcomes. It determines, if you look at the research, their educational opportunities, it determines their health opportunities, and it determines what they will be and the possibilities that they can realise in their life. So homes are the most important infrastructure that we have in the city, and one that we absolutely have to focus on. So we've now got the framework of a policy, and now all we need is a whole pile of actions that flow from that.
Very good. Yanni, Dion, Jimmy.
I just want to make 3 points. One is that actually housing is really about, in my view, it's actually about a home. So everyone deserves to have a secure, safe, and comfortable home in Christchurch. I mean, probably in the world, but let's focus on Christchurch. So we are unique in that I think the quality of life that people can have in Christchurch, because they can access affordable, secure, warm, comfortable housing that contributes to having a sense of home and also a sense of community, is a pretty compelling reason for people to want to live here. But we are, I think, at a crossroads. And I think the emergency housing really needs to be addressed in a lot more of a holistic approach, and this policy hopefully gives us the teeth to start doing that. For example, in Seattle, they have a downtown emergency services centre that actually took in the top so many people that were costly to the welfare department, the health department, the justice department, and the city, and it gave them a home each, and it really wrapped around services for people, and it ended up saving the city of Seattle a huge amount of money, because the cost otherwise to those people was tens of millions, if not $20 million more. So there's new ways of doing things around emergency housing and actually housing for homelessness, for homeless and for people that need it, that goes across government departments and across city and central government levels, that can get much better solutions than what we've currently got, which we tend to spend a lot of money on band-aid solutions rather than solutions that can actually make a lot better outcomes. And the third point I wanted to make is that one of the really interesting things in the history of our city is the amount of land that's been rezoned straight after the earthquake for housing. And I think we're really at a crossroads, and I'm really supportive of the inclusionary zoning to be amended to be a higher priority, because actually this is probably, in the history of Christchurch, one of the greatest times of rezoning that we've got going on. But the issue with that is that at the moment, what we're seeing is that there's entire new subdivisions that have no affordable or social housing going on in the north and the west and the southwest of the city, where you've got a huge concentration in some of the central and the eastern suburbs. And the problem with that over time is actually it creates a huge social problem for our city. You can see examples of this happening in America in places like Texas and McKinney, where they actually found that there's now an increase in racial tension because of the fact that so many social housings estates have been concentrated in very small, dense parts of the city and being excluded from other parts of the city. So there are counties in the states that have addressed that. Montgomery County in Maryland, one of the most diverse counties in America, one of the most affluent. And in 1974, it put in an inclusionary zoning law requiring there to be moderately priced units in their projects, and it's been really successful. So we need to do this now, not later. Now is the time to be looking at making sure that social and affordable housing is spread across our entire city, not concentrated in just a few pockets that can exacerbate social problems. So I'd strongly support this being added as a higher priority, and think that it's really important that we do think about where the future of affordable and social housing goes in our city. So very happy to endorse this policy. I think it sets in place a time to start an actions of start doing some work, which is incredibly important around the future well-being of our city.
Dion.
I just want to say that I'd support this policy from the limited time that I've been here, but I've been around a number of the organisations from the outside who have been working on creating this policy, and from what I've seen with the inclusion of the Human Rights Commission and some of the other organisations, it's really good to see that collaborative approach to actually starting to sort out some of the issues, not just that the council is going to do, but our communities who are very passionate about doing that stuff to look after our homeless people in our city, and make sure that there is that security of tenure. Now, I'm really concerned in my view, looking at the future of disruptive technology, has been mentioned before, about the potential for people losing their jobs to technology, and what that means for people who have mortgages or rents to pay, and those sort of things. So I think this is a really interesting time that we actually need to start thinking about those issues. Homes, in my opinion, are the biggest reason for inequality in our whole country, probably in the whole world. The difference in using that as a collateral, and all those kind of things that make that issue, and I think this is a really good way to start making that a bit more even for people who can't get on that ladder. One of the things I'm really keen to sort of see as we start becoming and looking at the city of opportunity is to make sure that people who come to Christchurch for that opportunity aren't left in our most awful houses possible, or if there's any of those sort of things. I don't want people coming to Christchurch looking for opportunity and being left out and looking for housing and not being able to find it when they want to find it. And there's also one other issue that I want to bring up, is the as-is, where-is housing. And I was just looking in the policy. Hold on, technology is a bit slow. The location, housing that provides for physical safety is away from locations that threaten the health of its occupants and allow access to services. One of the big things that I'm really concerned about is moving forward, we're going to have a lot of as-is, where-is houses in our city. And I want to make sure that those houses are safe for people, not necessarily for people who have bought them to own them, to do them up. But I don't want people to be left in those houses who are the vulnerable people in our communities that are going to be stuck in houses that are not safe and not habitable. So I think we also need to think about, when we enact this policy, to actually start looking at those things. And I think this is a really good thing for the Central Ward as well. We want to get more people living in the Central Ward, and I think having a diverse central city is what's going to make our whole city a really vibrant and lively place to live. So I think on those bases I do support this policy, and I think I want to put some congratulations to Councillor Livingstone for making it happen.
Whole team effort over some time, so I think
all the people that have been involved, I think it's really
people
good.
all around you who've done things.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Jimmy.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I fully support this issue, because after February 2011, we are all aware that 11,000 households has been damaged. So we need to be aware, recognize, righteous. There is the kind of housing crisis. And also this policy, actually, even a little bit late, but release a strong signal. Council would like to take into account and also take this issue more seriously. Second is, if we review the list of issues, all people in Christchurch have access to the housing that is secure, safe, affordable, warm, and dry. So if we review the human rights, the kind of the act, comply with the human rights Third one is that this policy actually to guide the council decision is support the collaborative action. Especially we review those that contain this kind of separate three different categories: market housing, affordable housing, and also the social housing. It's meet all kinds of people in Christchurch can meet their needs. And also this one, particular some of the speaker mentioned, we have a consultation, especially for all those key stakeholders, EK, CDHB, Christchurch Youth Council, and the 5 community board members and some other like tenant protection section. Actually, it's kind of citywide cover most of it, and get the feedback. We have amended and also reflecting to this proposed policy. So that's very good. But also try to emphasize, if we review the Schedule 1, that's kind of proposed list for our policy. Probably we need to consider how to implement.
And in the future, more efficiently, more effectively, and based on this the priority. Because this policy is high-level strategic document, the implementable continue to follow up is most crucial. So that's main reason I support this one. Thank you.
Ray?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm very supportive of this policy. I mean, I think it's clear that housing policy has been just a massive failure of government over the last 8 years, and that's created the huge problem we have, which is where we have to talk about affordable housing as if it's something that is kind of unusual. I think, to address Dave's question about, the contractual aspect, well, the problem is government hasn't fulfilled their side of the bargain. But I think, in terms of having a different approach to tenancies, having longer tenancies and building a culture of being long-term tenants will hopefully help to build better neighbourhoods. And actually, ultimately, people will take more pride and care of the places they live in. I think that's what we would hope to get out of this. One thing I'd like to see maybe a little bit stronger in here is actually building some houses. So, as Gianni said, we've got a lot of land supply, but actually we don't have a lot of new houses, which is exactly what we need. Councils have been responsible for some of that with restrictive planning processes and urban growth boundaries, pushing up the price of land, which is ultimately the big problem we have. So I'd like to see a little bit more focus around actually how we're going to deliver a lot more homes, and there's lots of ways of doing that. So I think this is a great start, and I think it's going to be a very important area for us to focus on.
Very good. All right. Aaron?
Yeah, I'd just start by just clarifying the figures I used before. They were based on the average income, and if you ring New Zealand's largest bank, which is ANZ, and ask them how much money they'll give you if you have $1,265 in your household a week, they said it would be a mortgage of $160,000. So that was where that number came from that I was using. Yeah, sorry, not Kiwibank, they'd give you $161,000 because they were one better. For me, I'm okay with this policy. I'm not that excited because it doesn't have the measurables I'd like to see, which is around our social housing and a clear policy that would show that we're going to grow our social housing at the rate that we're growing our population. I think the only difference between Christchurch and Auckland as far as the housing issues go is that their population's growing faster, so their problem's bigger. If ours was growing that fast, we'd be in the exact same problem because no one in Christchurch is really solving that problem. It's good that we've got a start point. That's at least something, but we're just lucky we don't have that population growth. There needs to be more houses built, and I think we need to start talking smaller rather than just more, and that's where the real issue is. It's an environmental one as well as an affordable one, just the sheer size of them. So we need to be getting some measurables, I think, around the amount of houses that are being built and see it delivered. And the pepper potting that Yanni referred to in the different neighbourhoods, it's weird that we would sign off a subdivision somewhere that doesn't require 7% of the sections or a number to go into social housing, and however that's done, the developers could sell their worst sections first up straight away. Someone would be buying them. It would make sense, but it should be a requirement, because that would be the better way to live. I'm not sure how many here have lived in a state house. I have, and it sucks. It was a real crappy neighbourhood with lots of cars on the front lawns and stuff like that, and when you put all the people with lots of problems in the same neighbourhood, you just get lots more problems. And we should be undoing that, and pepper potting's the way to go. The smart parts of Europe have done it, some parts of America, and we will eventually learn the lesson.
Very good. All right. Tim?
Sorry, just quickly, there was pepper potting. If you go to Sumner and you go to Fendleton and other areas, there were enclaves of social housing, and it worked really well. So somewhere along the line, someone had a bright idea that that land's too expensive, but the social
government actually. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't want to give you an in there, but that's okay. I mean, the true, and going back to Dave's point and part of Raf's thing, if you give a child a true home and a roof over their head, you will give them a sense of belonging, a sense of worth, and that will turn them from a subject to a citizen, and that is where we should be concentrating. That's where we should start, and that pepper potting will absolutely add to that. So I think this is a good first step, but that is exactly what it is. So, and thank you to all that worked on it.
I've now been forced to say something when I wasn't going to, and what, you know, I just think that one of the you know, I agree with what Dion said about as is where is and the legacy that will leave our city. But there is something else going on that I am deeply uncomfortable about, and that is the way that there's been a separation between those the qualification mechanism for a state house and the delivery of the state housing. So Housing New Zealand no longer have a say over who goes into their houses. It's all done through MSD, and it's all based on a roof over their head while they need the financial support, and then off. That is not about building communities, and it doesn't work here. I don't think it works anywhere, but I can only speak for Christchurch. I think it's hugely damaging. I'm already seeing the results in some of the neighbourhoods where there are a large co-location of state houses, which have had the benefit of a community renewal approach over more than a decade, which has seen a fundamental change to the way those neighbourhoods are and how they feel about themselves. You know, I mentioned the Aranui community, the Affirm Festival. You know, what a powerful word Affirm is. You know, they have really taken a leadership role in their community. Housing New Zealand, well, the Ministry of Social Development is destroying the very essence of what makes that community work by actually putting in place individuals who require a considerable degree of support or supervision, I say carefully, because of the nature of the backgrounds that they bring into a vulnerable community. And I say that that's wrong. You know, so I think that Christchurch having a strong housing policy will enable us to go to central government and say to them, if you want out of building communities, then we put our hand up. We can help you. We can take over Housing New Zealand houses. We've got a community housing trust now, which is at arm's length from council. It has only 49% holding. Give us the responsibility, because I don't think that any one of us wants to see what has been an incredible effort to build communities and build resilience, and I know some people don't like the word, but to build resilience within those communities, just to have a policy that completely ignores that we're not into building houses, we're into building communities, you know. So I'm just, I've got that off my chest now. So on that note, I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That is carried unanimously. Thank you.